Good afternoon. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to be here to speak and say a few remarks before I administer the oath of office to Secretary Padilla. Let me say that prior to becoming chief when I was a Court of Appeal justice, I watched and learned about some of the most important legislation that Secretary Padilla championed when he was in the Senate. And those are things that were always forward-looking and always thought about the future of California, including all of his efforts with renewable energy and climate change and climate concerns. And also, as my husband thanks him to this day, for sponsoring the caloric menu count on every item, because my husband and our 2 children read that very closely. But the point of all that is, frankly, is that he is a man of vision. And I say this because as a person of this state, his work in the Senate mattered. And as you look at his background, you know that wherever he joined in public service, he soon became a leader among leaders. Let me also say that as a parent, knowing that he was a mechanical engineer major at MIT, who then later found his calling in public service after the choral leadership experience, I found that amazing because we have a daughter who is majoring in engineering. And it seems like public service and engineering don't exactly fit. But Alex Padilla has made it genius in how he takes the mind of an engineer and how things work, deconstructs them, and puts them together to work better. And through that, I have enjoyed our partnership on civic engagement and civic discourse. With your leadership, we've been able to bring K-12 civic engagement, civil discourse, critical thinking, collaborative projects together to children all over the state. And our point is to make civic leadership, civic engagement, something that every child can access and be a part of. And so that when they grow up into the macro world, they understand that that's the same thing we do, only we do it after we've taken the oath of office. And so, Secretary Padilla, with your beautiful family, your vision for the future, your work on making democracy accessible to all, and believe me, this summer you made it very easy for me to go online and change parties, which was something surprisingly simple. I'll just say, nonpartisan aside, I took you up on your word, and sure enough, I was able to do it from my laptop in my kitchen. So thank you very much for that, and it is indeed an honor to be able to administer this oath of office. I invite you, please, to the stage.
Where's your rocket ship, puppy? All right.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I,
Alex Padilla,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support and defend
the
Constitution of the United States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance
to
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, Padilla. You want to say hello?
Hello.
Dad, what is it? It's a microphone. Can I use it? You want to say hi too? Want to say hi to me? You're not going to say hi? Okay, then go sit with Mom. No. Chocolates, anyone? I must have been on my best behavior. Thank you. Thank you first to our Chief Justice for administering the oath to me today, and as was acknowledged earlier, your commitment to justice and to democracy. It's been a wonderful partnership. I want to thank Astrid as well for your leadership at the future of California elections. As James acknowledged, our partnership, I want you to tell all the members, is so critical and important in all the work that we do. And thank you. Another round of applause for Chairman Maccaro for that moving, beautiful invocation. Many people recognize Chairman Maccaro for his leadership of the Pechanga Band of Luiseño Indians in Southern California, but don't have the appreciation for the leadership role he plays with several national organizations on issues of economic justice and opportunity, civil rights, and more. I want to thank Carrie, our interpreter, for being here and for her valuable service. To my colleagues in public service, many of you were acknowledged earlier, thank you for being here for our partnership, each and every legislative session and each and every budget. I want to thank my Secretary of State team, the executive staff, the division chiefs, everybody here at the agency. There's more than 500 members of the Secretary of State family who work hard day in and day out to do well by the people of California. And all we have accomplished and all we will accomplish is thanks to their commitment, to their professionalism, and their hard work. So thank you very, very much. I've seen a couple. I haven't seen all 58, but we do have some registrars of voters and county clerks in the audience, another key partner in all that we do on the elections front and democracy front throughout the state of California. And for the representatives of various election, modernization, and voting rights organizations, thank you. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for not just supporting a lot of what we propose, but pushing us to go even further. And thank you for, when you're done pushing us to go further, for pushing the legislators to do so as well. And of course, I want to thank my family. Roman couldn't be with us today, but you all just saw Alex, who was in my arms 4 years ago, standing with Mom, and Diego, who was on stage, although you couldn't see him 4 years ago, because Angela was 9 months pregnant. So he's here celebrating with us today. Of course, my beautiful wife, my rock, the love of my life. In Spanish, you say, mi media naranja, Angela. Thank you for everything, baby. And Dana, now's the time. Just a little something. I tell her I love her every day. I tell her she's beautiful every day. But today she gets flowers. And I got the chocolates right here waiting. And the gentleman with the white highlights in his hair is my father, Santos Padilla. Who's been my inspiration. As many of you know, we lost my mother a couple months ago. And while I know she's not here physically, she's here in spirit and celebrating with us. And as James mentioned when he did the welcome, each and every one of you is here for a reason. I thank you all for being here, for your continued friendship, not just your support, your friendship. It's an honor to have you all celebrate with us on this very special occasion. My fellow Californians, thank you for the honor of being able to serve as your Secretary of State for another term. 4 years ago, when I was first sworn in as Secretary of State, right on this very stage, many of you were here, I pledged to work tirelessly to bring more Californians into the democratic process. I made that promise based on a shared belief that we are a stronger democracy and a better California when we hear all voices from all corners of California, and when those voices are not just heard, but counted. I made that promise based on a shared belief that we are a stronger democracy, and that promise is rooted in the most basic right afforded to all American citizens, our right to vote. Our work in California to ensure that elections are free and fair and accessible to all comes at a very pivotal moment in our nation's history. We face a president who's determined to roll back the clock on voting rights. He ignores direct attacks to our elections, working to undermine the census and to demonize immigrants. And in these unprecedented times, our determination to never waver in our belief that our right to vote is fundamental has never been more critical. So I'm doubling down on our fight here in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. to defend our democracy. And working on the front lines with so many of you, I know that our collective resolve has never been stronger. And this is why, in the face of cynical efforts to suppress the vote in dozens of states across the country, and documented efforts by foreign adversaries to undermine the integrity of our elections or public confidence in our elections, I'm proud to report that Californians have responded with record high voter registration and record high turnout, both enabled by our work to increase election security and accessibility. Voter registration is at an all-time high. 19.7 million Californians registered to vote going into last November's election. And turnout is up. More than 12.5 million Californians cast their ballot last election. That's nearly a 65% turnout, the highest in a gubernatorial election since 1982. I just saw Betty, our controller. I don't know if you were introduced earlier, but Betty, thank you for being here. But this record-breaking registration, record-breaking turnout tells me that our work during my first term has made a real impact on Californians showing up at the polls. We launched same-day registration, officially known as conditional voter registration, and on Election Day alone, more than 55,000 Californians were able to take advantage of that new opportunity. We introduced online pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds, and more than 300,000 young people have signed up, with more than 100,000 of them turning 18 in time to be able to vote in last November's election. And we launched automatic voter registration, known as California Motor Voter, integrating voter registration into the transactions at DMV for all eligible Californians. And more than 775,000 eligible but previously unregistered Californians have been registered to vote and growing. Now, Now, California motor voter has not been without its challenges, so I want to be clear about this. I will work with the new administration and the legislature and new leadership at the DMV to make sure the necessary oversight and accountability measures are in place to preserve the integrity of the program and our voter registration data. But we will do so in a way that honors our responsibility to facilitate voter registration and civic participation. And as much as we've worked to increase registration rates and turnout rates, we've been equally committed to making voting itself more accessible. The 2018 election was also the debut of the Voters' Choice Act, a new way of administering elections that gives voters more choices of when, where, and how to vote. 5 counties chose to modernize their elections in 2018, the counties of Madera, Napa, Nevada, Sacramento, and San Mateo, and all 5 exceeded the record statewide turnout. But while we've achieved historic progress to strengthen our democracy, we've also done it while confronting unforeseen and unprecedented challenges. We're living in an era of efforts to suppress the vote in dozens of states across the country, and with foreign adversaries seeking to undermine our elections. We have a president who refuses to acknowledge foreign interference in the 2016 elections and who continues to make baseless claims of massive voter fraud. But at every turn, we've stood up to these challenges. When Trump created his so-called voter fraud commission and stacked it with a who's who of voter suppression zealots, we fought back. I was the first Secretary of State to push back on their request for the personal information of every voter in California. And soon after, most secretaries, both Democrat and Republican, did the same. And within the year, Trump was forced to dissolve that sham commission. But while that threat subsided, others continued to rise. Cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns by foreign adversaries continue to be a menace to our elections. While California maintains rigorous testing and certification requirements for voting systems, including the use of paper ballots and a voter-verified paper trail, we keep our voting systems offline and we require post-election audits after every election. The new threats we're facing require that we do much, much more, and we are. We've conducted security audits, we've upgraded servers and firewalls and increased staff training and more. We've successfully appealed to the governor and the legislature for state funding for voting system upgrade and replacement. Fully leveraged, we have $268 million election infrastructure modernization happening right now. And while this is a great step, we'll need sustained funding if we're going to be successful in countering the ongoing threats to our elections. We also received funding for the creation of the Office of Election Cybersecurity and the Office of Enterprise Risk Management within our agency, which has increased our cybersecurity expertise and communications capacity. And to combat disinformation, we launched Vote Sure, a first of its kind in the nation public education initiative to promote reliable, accurate, official election information on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. In the weeks leading up to the election, we made more than 42 million impressions via social media aimed at all voting age Californians. And we launched a new web portal, votesure.sos.ca.gov, you can program it later, which allows voters to easily verify their registration status, find their polling place, or report election misinformation. And we deployed a new social media monitoring tool to identify misinformation. We ended up reporting nearly 300 posts to Facebook, Twitter, and others last November. Each of these posts had the potential to disinform millions of voters. 98% of the posts that we identified as misleading and reported were promptly taken down by social media companies. But while we've been successful in protecting our elections from foreign interference thus far, cyber threats and disinformation campaigns are not going away. In fact, they're the new normal. Those who seek to undermine our democracy will continue their efforts, and with increased frequency and sophistication. So we must remain vigilant. We must act with resolve, and we must never waver in our work to defend against nefarious actors. In the years ahead, I will work with Governor Newsom and the legislature to make the necessary investments to protect our electoral process. I'm proud of all that we have achieved in my first term, not just in elections, but throughout the agency. We've made it easier to do business in California. We've simplified filings for hundreds of thousands of businesses thanks to our new BizFile California, automating entrepreneurs' transactions with the Secretary of State. Guess what? Less paper, less delays, and less errors. We're modernizing the state's archives through digitization initiatives that are making our state's history more accessible to all Californians. And I'm particularly proud of an award-winning partnership with the Google Cultural Institute, which has brought curated exhibits online to showcase California history in a way that is easier to access and enjoy. And we're on track to replace Cal Access by the end of 2019 to make it easier for the public and the press to track the flow of money in state politics. But as I look to the future, I recognize we'll still have a lot of work to do. For starters, I'm glad you're all sitting down. Our next statewide election day is only 14 months away. Yeah, quick math. We've taken the bold but important step of moving up the presidential primary in California to the first Tuesday of March. As we know, California is the most populous state in the nation, the most diverse state in the nation, and we represent the largest economy of any state in the nation. Californians deserve a real say in determining who the nominees for president are, and an early primary will give us that exact opportunity. And you better believe that as we approach the 2020 elections, we will work further to increase voter registration and further increase access to the ballot. And speaking of 2020, I also plan to work hard to ensure that every Californian is counted in the 2020 census. Our fight is well underway against the Trump administration and their efforts to undermine the decennial national population count. In case you haven't heard, the census has been understaffed and underfunded. And while the 2020 census will be the first digital census in history, a digital divide still persists in California and throughout the nation. The Trump administration now plans to question the citizenship of every person in America. It's a thinly veiled attempt to discourage, frankly, the very diverse communities, like many in California, from participating in the census. And in case your news source of choice hasn't covered the story, the Census Bureau is part of the shutdown that's been going on for, 17 days now, with no end in sight. The census serves many important purposes. Yes, it determines federal funding formulas for the next decade. At stake are billions of dollars for California for healthcare, education, and transportation. But the decennial census data also drives the important reapportionment and redistricting processes. An undercount in California jeopardizes our representation in Congress, and yes, our voting rights too. I'm proud to support Attorney General Becerra's lawsuit to have the citizenship question removed from the 2020 census. And my office will leverage our outreach and communications resources to educate all Californians on the importance of being counted. So as you can see, it's clear that we do have much work to do. and the challenges that lie ahead are great. I accept the ongoing challenge to ensure the security, accessibility, and inclusivity of our elections. And we will continue to modernize our business programs division and make it even easier to do business in California. And we will shine a brighter light on money in state politics. We will increase public access to California's complete history contained in the archives, and we will step up to the monumental task of ensuring that every Californian is counted in the 2020 census. Our challenges ahead may be great, but our resolve is even greater. And I look forward to working with the great women and men at the Secretary of State's office and with all of you, and to channel the spirit of Guadalupe Padilla to meet our challenges head on and deliver for all Californians. I thank you all again for your support. May God bless you, and may God bless the great state of California. Thank you very much.